Hello, Wear Many Hats listeners. Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Mark Robinson, and today I am really pleased to be joined by the Head of Procurement for Dalkia UK, Steve Hanrahan. Hello, Steve. How you doing?
Hello, good, thank you.
Having a good day?
Yeah, it's been a good day in our London office today. So it's, quite a few people in there, so it's been a good sociable day.
Good. So is there quite a few people coming back to the office in your place now?
Yeah, so I guess for us as a facilities management company, all of our kind of contract teams have been out working throughout COVID.
Right.
So they were never furloughed. They just continued delivering because we work on a lot of critical buildings.
Yeah, so they'd have had key worker status, I'm guessing.
Absolutely, yeah. But now we're sort of encouraging people to come back in. I think it's good for mental well-being, having people in the office, that face-to-face interaction, much better for building relationships. So I'm seeing a lot more suppliers face-to-face now.
That's good.
And getting out to different events and conferences.
Right.
So I think, real positive getting back in front of people and face-to-face.
Oh, fantastic. Good stuff. So you've been in procurement quite a while. How long have you been?
27 years.
27 years. You get less for murder.
I know. I don't look old enough, a lot of people say.
So can you tell us a little bit about your career journey in procurement? Where did it start? What's the beginning, the middle and the end, Steve?
So the beginning for me was not even in procurement.
Right.
So I'm a fully qualified carpenter.
Really?
Up to foreman level.
Yeah.
I've worked in engineering, building aeroplane wings.
Really?
For Airbus, yeah.
Wow.
So that's given me good practical knowledge, which has allowed me to thrive probably in FM and maintenance.
Right.
Because I can talk to the engineers and although I don't understand and can do all their algebraic calibrations and calculations.
All of that dark magic.
I can understand how a system works.
Right.
So I really, like most people, fell into procurement by pure accident.
Okay.
I went in as a temp at Glaxo Wellcome at the time.
Right.
And it happened to be that temp role was in procurement, purchasing raw materials.
Right, okay.
So I was buying all of the kind of active products that go into asthma devices and tablets.
Wow.
So, it was a really good start. I really enjoyed the time in Glaxo. After, I think it's about 3 or 4 months, they took me on permanent.
Right. And how long ago was that?
That was 27 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
So, by the way, for anybody that can't see Steve, obviously, because we don't video these, he looks incredibly young, to be fair. He looks like his paper round was all downhill.
There's a few grey hairs. So it was, I went permanent and then moved across from raw materials into buying indirects. So that was laboratory supplies, calibration for the laboratory equipment, manufacturing equipment, maintenance, warehousing. So the whole rafter of different things that they did on the manufacturing site. I picked up capital equipment as well when a guy retired. And that allowed me to start looking at like the total life cycle cost. Yeah. So whereas when one person buys the capital equipment, they're focused on the price of the equipment. And they're saying, look, pat on the back, I saved 20% on that equipment. But they don't always consider the maintenance side of it. And then the manufacturers will go, oh, yeah, brilliant. We can put the price up on the maintenance because they didn't consider that. So you may end up paying more, whereas when I was looking after both, I had the full consideration of looking at how much is it going to cost us over the whole life of that equipment. So that was a really beneficial piece of work and role to have within that business.
It's a really broad church, isn't it, really, in terms of what you were responsible for buying? Especially at the start of your procurement career. That's really interesting.
Yeah, but I think that's really what helped me to develop and probably gave me the sort of love and the passion in procurement. Because it was different every day. I was buying different things. I was dealing with lots of different stakeholders. So I'd be dealing with warehouse managers one day, production operators, engineers, the stores people. So I dealt with everyone on everything, which was fantastic because it gave me a really broad spectrum
Yeah.
different categories to look after.
Wow. And so was there a limit on what you could procure in terms of a value, or were there boundaries put in place because you were quite new to the industry?
Not really, no. So
Just let you go at it.
yeah, well,
I mean, 10,000 widgets.
Yeah, Glaxo at the time were like an A.T. Kearney sort of top tier company. So they were world leading in procurement.
Yeah.
We had sourcing management at the time, which is what you'd call category management now.
Yeah.
So they were quite pioneering. So my training there was a really good base. And we had governance in place. So if I wrote a sourcing strategy, that would go through approvals of senior managers. And they were really supportive. I was training to do my MSIPs, which they supported, paid for, gave me the time to do.
Okay.
So it was a fantastic company to go into as a new procurement person.
To cut your teeth within that environment.
I mean, there was about 1,000 procurement people across the world for GlaxoSmithKline at the time.
Yeah.
So you were able to tap into lots of different people's experiences, and that really allowed me to learn very quickly about procurement, different ways of doing things. So it was, as I say, fantastic. And I'm always grateful for that opportunity. I worked with them for, I think it's about 11 years nearly.
Right, okay.
I had an 8-month break where I went to live in Cornwall and I was buying mining equipment.
Oh, really?
So for English China Clay, who changed the name to Imerys Minerals, they were building a new dry mining plant.
Right.
So it was all big rock crushers, things they call it like grizzly feeder.
Oh, well, that was cool.
Civils. Yeah, that was, you're talking to kind of totally different supply chain.
Yeah.
And I was based in a little cottage right at the entrance to the pit.
Really?
So where they're mining all of the, it's basically granite that is,
excuse me,
basically where you weather. It forms cracks, and then the dust in between is what they call kaolin, which is the white powder that's processed to go into like paper whitener.
Oh, really?
And it goes into China.
Right.
So you make lots of, sort of different plates, cups, and stuff like that out of it. But yeah, so I was based in this little cottage.
That's all right.
At the entrance to the pit.
Yeah.
Even to the point where they left the door open in the summer, I even had a little snake come in, and I just, out the corner of my eye, saw this thing slithering across the floor.
Yeah.
It's like, so I just got one of those shovels, sort of picked it up and put it back outside.
That must have been quite unusual for a London lad.
Yeah, it was. It was very strange. Yeah. And having supplier meetings, they had they can only really be described as old sheds that they'd converted into like meeting rooms.
Right.
And you had to wear like rigger boots or wellies because it was just an absolute bog walk into these places.
I know.
And so you get suppliers turning up with a civil, so they've got their rigger boots on, but then you've got other ones that are selling equipment and they're turning up in suits and shoes, and you're thinking, they're going to be ruined.
Yeah. It's going to last about 10 seconds, aren't you? Yeah,
but that was a totally different kind of procurement.
Yeah.
I'll never forget being in a negotiation with a supplier, and my boss at the time was from France.
Right.
And he was a stickler. He wanted every single point agreed. There was no, well, let's park that for now and move on because it's causing a delay and we'll come back to it. It was like, no, we're sticking on that point until it's agreed. And it was, we were in the room for probably best part of about 11 hours negotiating with a supplier. I think it's the longest negotiation I've ever been on.
That doesn't surprise. That sounds like a long time.
It was a long time.
Is that where some of the grey hairs came from?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But yeah, it was, again, another good learning curve. But then, so my wife at the time, my ex-wife, was feeling a little bit isolated because our family lived up here.
Yeah.
So at that time, she was thinking about coming back. I got a call from one of my old bosses at Glaxo and said, look, I'm interested in why you left. We thought you were a star of the future. So it was a bit of a shock that you left being here so long.
Yeah.
So can you just give me some feedback? So I fed back to him and he said, are you happy? where you are? And I said, well, actually, I said, wife is kind of feeling a bit isolated. So we might be looking for a move back. And he's like, I've got 2 jobs for you.
Really?
You can go to Barnard Castle up near Newcastle, or you can come to Crawley.
Yeah.
So we spoke about it, and Crawley was closer to the family.
Yeah.
So we went there, and I went back to GSK for a couple of years.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yes, but yeah, Crawley, I was back at GSK. Yeah. Really good team there on site. And they were planning on developing the site, building a new sort of manufacturing building. Yeah. And then they went through kind of a state's review and said, actually, now we're going to close that site.
Right.
So it's
typical, isn't it?
And timing is everything. An agency phoned me up and said, I've seen your CV and I think you've got the right skills for a job. And that was at Barclays.
Right.
So I was like, whereabouts is it based? They said Canary Wharf. And I used to work in London when I was doing the carpentry. Yeah. I always used to drive past in the van, past Canary Wharf, and just like, wow, them buildings. But when they said about working, I was like, I'm not working in London. I've done that. I don't want to do it again. It's easy, he said, easy. Just seriously, go for the first interview. You'll see how easy it is. So jumped on there. Of course, interviews like middle of the day. Yeah. So
it's easy.
Get on the train. This is lovely. There's no people around. Yeah. Travel in, get into London Bridge, Jubilee line, beautiful line, nice and clean. Yeah. Go out to Canary Wharf, walk out, off of the escalator, and you just go, wow. You look up all these buildings. Yeah, it is cool, isn't it? And it's amazing. It is a lovely place. And I love London. Yeah. I wouldn't live in London necessarily. I know it's for some people, it's not for others.
It's a bit like Marmite, isn't it? You either love it or you don't.
Well, I love coming to London to visit. Yeah. And coming in on the weekend, I was up here this weekend, and just walking around. And I love the different architectures that we've got in London.
I'm the same. Yeah, so, I love the vibrancy and the buildings and the history.
Pre-war buildings. Yeah. Next to shiny full glass buildings.
Yeah, it's so cool, isn't it?
And it is amazing. Yeah. And I've not really experienced anywhere with quite so much diversity within the buildings and architecture.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So it's amazing, and I was kind of taken by that. Yeah. Came in, I think I had the hardest interview I've ever had in my life. Right. Guy sat me in a glass, it was in one of the glass buildings in Canary Wharf, but it was a particularly sunny day. We were sat near the window and the sun was blaring in. So I was just drinking and thinking, he must be thinking, I'm so nervous.
Yeah, you were hot and uncomfortable.
But he was really good, actually. He was a really good guy. But really challenged me, but it was an enjoyable sort of interview and conversation. But I came out there thinking, God, I've really been through an interview. Yeah.
Did you walk out thinking, oh, there's no way I got that?
A little bit, yeah. I did think, well, I'm not sure. And
them ones, in my experience, they tend to be the ones that you get. You know, like it's actually a really difficult process, and you're like, oh God. I mean, I remember once I came out of an interview, I rang my wife, and she went, how did it go? And I went, oh, there's no way I got that. No, God, that was just horrendous. I mean, there was other guys there with more experience and blah, blah, blah. But I did my best, but no way. Then I put the phone down to her. 5 minutes later, I get a call off the hiring manager telling me I've got the job. Yeah, and then 5 minutes later, I'm ringing the wife and going, I was wrong there. They've offered.
And it is. And you come out, and they invited me back for a second interview. And they, at the time, Barclays were really, and I think they still are, to be fair, they were very, very selective and very hard. They wanted
the right people.
Well, and stars.
Yeah.
So, whereas I developed within GlaxoSmithKline and the people that I was in the team with at the start, I sort of developed and had passed them doing the SIPs and some of the things I'd been working on. And then I moved into R&D, and that was a sort of step up the ladder. So I'd kind of been one of the shining stars in GlaxoSmithKline and one to look at for the future. So always felt pretty good. And you're coming into Barclays where you know full well they're being rigorous, and they're picking really good people. So when I first joined, it was sort of a bit nerve-wracking because some of them talked a lot of procurement language that you pick up in SIPs and that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people talk that and you scratch the surface and actually they know the words but not necessarily behind it. But these people knew everything behind it.
Yeah.
And what was really great about that is because you had those sort of people, it almost step changed my career. So I've been developing and sort of progressing over sort of 10, 11 years in GSK.
So did you have like a kind of imposter syndrome in those initial...
I did in the initial...
weeks when you joined Barclays?
I would say probably for the first 3 months.
Right, okay.
And the culture at the time wasn't very good.
Right.
Procurement was split over different floors.
Right.
There wasn't a great deal of interaction with other teams. You tended to stay in your category team. To the point where someone from GSK actually came into Barclays, and I didn't know her that well. I think I'd met her a couple of times at conferences.
Yeah.
But I'd always heard she was really nice.
Yeah.
And a sort of really good person, always supportive. And when she joined, I actually sort of said, can I just have 5 minutes with you? And I said, I can't get used to the culture here. I said, it's like GSK had a really good culture. It was supportive. It was all about developing people, about leadership behaviours. And Barclays was quite formal, lots of governance. And I spoke to her and I said, look, we're going to lose people if we don't do something on the culture. And as luck would have it, the CPO at the time, so Chief Procurement Officer, he was having exactly the same thoughts.
Oh, really?
So he was having conversations with people around developing a winning culture.
Yeah.
And so we actually got some kind of sports people in. They came in, gave us some training, and I was part of the culture change team. We actually developed what are our core values, and not kind of the aspiring values, but the actual values that people are going to live by.
Yeah.
Because you can have stuff to work towards, but ultimately, if you want to have a good culture, you need to have a good set of values that everyone believes in.
Yep.
So that's really sparked kind of my interest in culture. And when I'm looking at moves, I look at a business and what sort of culture it is, because it's really important to me.
I couldn't agree more.
For my success, that I've got to fit within that culture, but it's also got to fit with my core belief system, because if it doesn't, it will feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, completely agree.
So, it was a fantastic opportunity, and we did turn it round. And what a high-performing team it was.
Yeah.
We were set a savings target, and everyone sort of looked at it, and we're talking like hundreds of millions of savings target on this.
Yeah.
And everyone looked at him and was like, there is no way.
Yeah.
And we absolutely smashed it.
Really?
Absolutely smashed it. And it was just because doing this work in sort of probably a 6-8 month period, it just built a really solid culture, which other departments then within the business that we worked with as our stakeholders, they were looking at us and going, we've seen a massive change, seeing this real success. You're all sharing information, you're working well together, you all seem to be highly motivated, enjoying it. What did you do? So I actually went and sat with a property team and said, right, this is what we did. You got to sort of really go down, understand sort of where you are currently, what's acceptable and not acceptable, and challenge each other on it.
Yeah.
Because that's the big thing. A lot of people will put in their sort of, this is our company values, and it's honesty, integrity.
Yeah.
And you just go, right, okay. But if someone is acting outside of those values, is it then acceptable, and do people feel empowered enough and confident enough to go and challenge people on that?
Call that out.
Yeah. And that's what we were doing in Barclays.
Right.
Is if someone wasn't quite living up to the values, it was all right to say, because it wasn't a personal thing. It was, look, we want to be a successful team. We want to be one team. and this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And it really does work.
So was that culture that started in your team, is that something that eventually permeated throughout the whole of the business, would you say? Or
I don't know, because I left. It was, no, they were offshore into Singapore.
Right, okay.
And I didn't fancy moving to Singapore at the time because I had 2 young children here.
Yeah.
And I didn't fancy living halfway around the world. So
It's fair enough.
at that time, I said, it's not for me. Some of the team went out there. It was a
Very,
great
very
experience.
muggy there as well.
Yeah.
Very, very muggy.
But I think it was a really good experience for them.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of enjoyed their time there.
Yeah.
I think since Barclays have brought most of it back into the UK again.
Right. So did you actually get offered the opportunity to go to Singapore as well?
Yeah, I could have gone with Barclays, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who, I like going on holiday, but I do like living in the UK.
I think I've lived in other countries, and I think the UK is one of the best countries in the world. And whenever I say that to people, they're like, "What?" No way. But
I agree.
I honestly do. It's one of the fairest places to live on the planet.
Yeah, and it's steeped in so much history.
Yeah.
I know we have a lot of rain, but that does make for beautiful countryside.
It does. Yeah.
We've got so many places to visit that probably none of us will see all of them.
No.
But I mean, even I went to North Wales.
Yeah.
And we were just touring and visiting some of the castles, going around and visiting different places, and just driving along the road.
Yeah.
And I just stopped. There was nothing around, but just stopped. And it's like, there is a waterfall just coming out the middle of that rock face.
Yeah.
Not cascading over it, just literally coming out. It's just like, how's it doing that? But it's amazing things like that. And this country has got sort of so much culture as well.
Yeah.
We've got so many different cultures.
Yeah.
And
we don't give it enough credit.
No, and it's interesting, this country, and I like living here.
Yeah, I do as well. I completely agree with you. I think sometimes we have our problems. Of course we do.
Yeah, everybody does.
All countries do. But I think I do think that when you look at how other countries operate and how they deal with issues and problems and things like that, I do think we're pretty good at it. I think we're a very tolerant nation. I think that there's an element of acceptance within the country, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and this goes, I suppose, around to kind of the buzzwords at the moment, but diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
And you think, as a country, we are, and as businesses, we need to be as well.
Yeah.
Because it's proven that the more diverse people you have in your organisation, the more successful you'll be, because you're getting different perspectives and different ideas from lots of different people with different backgrounds, different cultures. They've worked in different businesses, maybe in different countries. So to get kind of the best solutions, you need that diverse group of people to kind of put all those ideas in.
A broad church.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I said earlier, it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it really is true.
It really is true.
That really is what you want. Okay, so so obviously you're at Barclays. Can I just ask one question? Has we tend to find this, especially with other guests on the show and things like that. Have you had mentors throughout your career that have helped you and shaped you as a professional?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been really lucky to work with some really high caliber and really great people, not just at procurement, but I've met some genuinely really great people over the years, and I've been mentored and coached. I've had some really good, I call them managers, but they don't really manage, they're more leaders, but they're my bosses.
Yeah.
And they've had a massive influence over my career and developing me, coming with different ideas, but not just telling you how to do something that's the skill in coaching is sort of getting you to come to the answer yourself.
Yeah.
And I've been really lucky that I've been surrounded by people who have done that over the years. And that's something I've always appreciated of those people.
Yeah.
And if they listen to this, they'll know who they are and go, yeah, that was me.
You don't want to drop any names in there, make a podcast famous, as I like to call it?
No, they'll know who they are.
They'll know who they are?
But I mean, one particular boss I worked with at Barclays.
Right.
After Barclays, I went to Marks and Spencer's.
Yeah.
And was enjoying my time there.
Yeah.
He moved from Barclays to John Lewis Partnership.
Yeah.
And I'd been at it was about 6 months after I left.
Yeah.
And he tried to poach me for a job at the partnership. Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm quite enjoying it here. And
yeah.
And then he tried again. We were out for a drink because we stayed friends.
As you are.
Yeah. And he said, 12 months in, do you want to come over? So I said, tell me a bit more about it. And he kind of sold me on it. And I really enjoyed working with him and sort of working in his team. He was kind of a softer approach, but really got the best out of people. Yeah. So eventually I said, yeah, okay, jumped over. And the partnership was somewhere where I had the opportunity to create stuff to almost give back. So like I'd received over the years. So I got involved and was creating like the category management framework and toolkit and was training other people in that with a sort of small team. So I got to develop some of the structure and how procurement worked. So that was a fantastic opportunity that I grabbed with both hands and enjoyed doing it. But what I also did when I was at John Lewis was I got involved with SIPs. Right. And started talking to them about what are you doing to attract young people and to develop them through so that, because like me and probably like yourself and pretty much any procurement person I talked to is, we fell in by accident, didn't really know about procurement till we got in an organisation. Yeah. And they said, I know, you can go and do that buying stuff. Yeah. And you kind of learn and be self-taught. You might go and do your SIPs. But I was more interested in how do you attract young people that are potential stars of the future into procurement rather than going into being a pilot, a policeman, a nurse, all of the popular, or a teacher, all of the popular things that are well publicised. And when you go to kind of careers evening, they're all out and, they're all great careers. And I wanted to make sure that people knew about procurement. So I actually adopted a school.
Oh, really?
So local to one of the John Lewis Partnership sites, got one of the local schools, and I was lucky enough that the head of their business studies was an ex-procurement person.
Oh, really?
So she was really open to it. We sat down, we had a few meetings on how it would work, how I could support it.
Just to ask, just for those, because I don't know, so I'm sure that there's probably, when you say adopt a school, was that a scheme or was that something that was a scheme within John Lewis?
No, so it was something new.
Right.
I think Waitrose used to go and support sort of careers evenings and have a stall. Yeah. But this was taking it to the next step. So this was really supporting the people, mainly the students doing business studies. Yeah. But what I used to do, so I did the careers evening. Right. Absolutely, that was fine. Did sort of talks. Yeah. Pulled in different people to come and talk to the students about different parts of the John Lewis Partnership business. Right. Yeah. So we had the people who did like the property development planning. Right. So what they look at to basically position a new Waitrose store, a new John Lewis store, looking at the demographics. So as a business studies group, they were like, wow. Yeah. Because they were having to do something similar. So it's real practical stuff.
Yeah, I didn't get anything like that when I did business studies at school. I'm a little bit disappointed.
No, it was. and this is what I wanted to do, is want to make a difference. Yeah. So at careers evening, I helped with CV writing skills. Right. Practice for sort of doing some interviews and how you can present yourself, what sort of questions to look out for. We took people on work experience, did 2 weeks in their summer holidays. So we said, we'll commit to 2 weeks, but you'll have to do it in your summer holidays because they don't get 2 weeks out of school.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So we did that. And the idea was sell it to sort of young, mid-teenagers Get them interested. And all right, if they're not interested in procurement, I talked about all the different roles within sort of a retailer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would just look at a retailer and go, well, you either stack the shelves or the rails or your customer service or you work on
They don't think about the
materials.
back office and all of the other functions associated with
absolutely
any business of scale.
Absolutely. And you did kind of see them sort of looking up, and it's quite a proud moment, I guess, because there's sort of like 100 kids in front of you who normally are just looking around the room. How quick can I get out of here and stop this Wally on stage talking so I can go to break?
Yeah.
But I would say probably 80 to 90% of them were fully open to it. And when I talked about the opportunity to get work experience, I was like, wow, John Lewis and Waitrose, they're well-known names,
of course,
well-respected for quality. So an opportunity to come and work in John Lewis partnership, it's like, wow, for a lot of sort of teenagers. Yeah. So that was really to get them interested in procurement, talk to them about how they can kind of go into procurement, what they need to study. And then I set up an industrial placement scheme.
Oh, really?
So when people go to uni, do a couple of years, then come and have a work placement for a year, go back. And I ran it for, I think it was running for about 4 years before I then moved on from the partnership.
Yeah.
But I had some great people. And then I set up a grad scheme.
Oh, really?
So the idea is sell it when they're doing their A-levels.
Yeah.
They then go to university. They come and do an industrial placement year.
Yeah.
Doing a year in procurement, you'll grow to love it because it doesn't normally take that long. And you'll realise why I was so passionate and go, actually, I can see what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And then they do the industrial placement, go back, finish their degree, and then come back on the grad scheme.
Right.
And do a grad scheme in procurement, moving around some of the different categories.
Yeah.
And then get a permanent job and have a great career in procurement. So we were trying to identify the stars of the future. And I had 2 grads. I had 4 reporting into me.
Yeah.
But there was 2 that had come through the industrial placement scheme.
Yeah.
And they've gone on to do really great things, and they will continue to do it. They're still, I mean, all of the grads I was proud of. They've all developed, they've progressed. But these 2 will go on to do some really good things in procurement.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of proud that I had a hand in sort of feeding that interest, but also proud of them because they were like sponges.
Yeah.
So you can try and teach people stuff, but if they're not really open to learning,
without doubt,
then they won't.
Yeah.
But these 2, as I say, they were like sponges. They were just, give me more. And they went round to different teams.
Yeah.
And they just learn and learn and learn. And one of them's working for a procurement consultancy now.
Right.
One of them's, funnily enough, gone to Barclays.
Really?
So,
you inspired them to join
and then
the Big B.
One of the other ones I saw recently, and he's progressed. He's leading a small procurement team now, so he's doing well. And the other girl that worked for me, she actually, because I left the partnership, went to Serco.
Yeah.
She came to Serco with me.
Yeah.
Did really well there, and then had another jump out there. So, they've all done and will continue to do really well. And it's all started from kind of that industrial placement scheme and that grad scheme.
So in effect, you've gone from, being mentored to effectively becoming a mentor yourself for multiple individuals that now have a fantastic career trajectory within the procurement world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not surprised you're proud. I'd be really proud of that as well. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's, I'm really interested in developing people, because it's still not really a well-known career.
No.
Although there's more and more of us, I think companies are realising the benefits that procurement bring, but it's not really publicised in schools, and it's never on, these are your opportunities and careers.
Yeah.
You have to go to quite specific colleges to do it. So, for me, even though I know you say I've been mentored and coached to now being one, I was still being mentored and coached while I was coaching others. The beauty of procurement is you never stop because you meet so many different people. You're always learning.
Yeah, you never stop learning, do you?
No.
I don't think in any industry really, and especially one that's as fast paced and ever changing as ours. I think every day is a school day. I still learn things now.
Yeah.
I learn a lot from the guests I have on the show. I've learned a lot from this.
All right.
To be fair, I'm taking it all in like a sponge, as you said earlier.
But you do. I mean, you meet different people who have got different experiences from different industries, different sectors, different businesses, and they all have different perspectives. And they've worked with people, so it's almost like that big collective. You're learning all the time, and that's, I guess, one of the things I enjoy about procurement is you work with so many different people.
Yeah.
And people are interesting.
Yeah. No, I love people. It's my favourite thing, people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you deal with suppliers as well. Again, they're working from a different perspective and they're working with lots of different customers. Yeah. And they're working in different industries. So you can learn so much from your suppliers as well.
Yeah.
You learn from your stakeholders.
Yeah.
And that's, you're kind of surrounded by sort of pools of knowledge that you can draw on. So
that you can utilise to, aid in your own development, your own professional development and take it forward. So obviously, you went, obviously from John Lewis, or the partnership, as you call it.
Yeah, it's John Lewis partnership. They call it the partnership.
Into Serco, which kind of moves you into the FM world.
Yes.
And then, you're now head of procurement at Dalkia UK. So, it's been, looking at your career, it's been quite a nice trajectory. And it seems that the trajectory has changed within a good time scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So talk us a little bit about, now being head of procurement, what that involves, what you're responsible for, examples and things like that.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to come into, it was Environ at the time, so part of the Imtech group. It was bought or acquired by EDF Energy, which is kind of EDF and Dalkia being their technical arm.
Yep.
So we've had really good support from a large organisation who are kind of hands off, really, unless you need some support. So being part of that group, we've had access to some really great leadership courses.
Yep.
I talk to procurement people within EDF. So it's had a good, strong backing. And
so your team does it bleed into EDF in terms of their operations, or
no?
So it is quite separate and insular.
I say no. So as I say, I do have involvement, and I work with the EDF procurement team on things like net zero and sustainability.
Yes,
I work with them on a graduate scheme.
Right.
So we have grads doing 3 rotations. They do 2 rotations, 8 months each in EDF, and then they come into Dalkia now.
Oh, right, okay.
And do 8 months with me as well.
So you've kind of replicated the success that you had at the partnership from a graduate perspective.
Yes.
And rolled it out at Dalkia, but in a slightly different format.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's...
To take advantage of those businesses. I mean, that's great. Okay.
I mean, EDF has obviously got the size, their turnover dwarfs us, obviously.
We pay for it, don't we?
Yeah. But you look at that gives us some of the resources to do really good things. And so we changed our name this year from Environ to Dalkia.
Yep.
Because we acquired SPE UK in December. So bringing that into the group, we've got that name license till the end of the year. So we kind of looked at it and said, do we change SPE UK into Imtech something?
Yeah.
Or do we take the opportunity
to bring it all together,
look at the whole lot, bring it in together, because it gives a lot clearer picture of what the business does now, as it's all under that one Dalkia banner.
Yeah.
Whereas before you'd say, well, if you want kind of an M&E project, you go and speak to Imtech Engineering Services.
Yeah.
If you then want it maintained, you go and talk to Environ.
Yeah.
If you want to look at energy, you go and talk to Breathe.
Yeah.
It now brings it under and go, Dalkia can offer you all of these services.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely positive. So it's the technical arm of EDF. So now we're part of that Dalkia family. Which is a really exciting time. And we're going through a lot of change because bringing Speed UK in, we've got to integrate that into the business. So
and that's always challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging, but it's interesting. There'll be exciting times. There'll be opportunities that come out of that integration, that change, and those challenges. So it's an exciting time.
Because there'd be a lot of rationalisation of the supply base and things like that, wouldn't there?
Absolutely, and that's kind of the next piece that we're working on, kind of as we speak, really.
Yeah.
But when I first came in, so I joined about 4.5 years ago.
Right.
Came in, we were building a relatively new senior leadership team. So most of the senior leadership team have been there a little bit longer than me, or they're a little bit newer than me.
Yeah.
But they selected a really good leadership team who could drive the business forward.
Right.
So, and that shows when I joined, turnover was 63 million.
Yeah.
This year will be probably around 120 million.
Wow.
And then as we bring the SPE FM piece in as well, that was up at 200 million.
Wow.
So massive growth, which could pull a business apart.
Yeah.
But I think the strength in the leadership team and the people, we've got it right with the culture.
Yeah.
So as Environ, we had some really good values. They were quite simple.
Yeah.
But really effective, just good business sense. We've changed them slightly now to be Dalkia values, but ultimately they're the same principles. It's about, people first. It's about caring for your people, looking after their health, safety and well-being.
Yeah, of course,
Being a trusted partner.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the key word there, trust. I think trust is the most important thing in business.
Really big on trust.
Yeah.
And sort of delivering on your promises. If you say you're going to do something, right, sometimes you can't, but then be open about it why you can't.
Yeah.
So,
it's about communicating properly, being transparent.
Absolutely.
If you can't do something right now, when can you do it? And if you can do it, if it's 3 days' time, tell them.
Yeah.
I can't do it now, but in 3 days' time, we can resolve it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where the frustrations in business are, hasn't it? I think most things boil down to communication, whether it's, and that's not to say that because I get it wrong sometimes. I do.
We all do.
Like, without a doubt. I think we're all human beings, and we all got that element wrong. But I think it's about striving to try and resolve it. Which I think is quite interesting. So Dalkia. So obviously you've been there now 4.5 years, approximately. I think.
Yeah, 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
So when I started, it was a greenfield opportunity.
Yeah. Did you come in as head of procurement?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And what's your team consist of at the minute?
So at the minute, I've got a procurement manager.
Yep.
Underneath me and an apprentice.
Yep.
I've got a grad starting in January.
Right.
But what we do, so we're a small procurement team.
Yeah.
But we tend to train the people out on the contract, so our contract teams, so they can do some procurement themselves. So I go around.
It would make sense to procure locally in certain areas.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, of course, yeah. For economies of scale and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I do procurement roadshows, which is going around seeing the contract teams, talking about are there any issues with the supply chain, how I can help them, but also kind of giving them some training on procurement. So there'll be a bit on tendering, the purchase to pay process, ethics, supplier management. So all of this stuff, because that enables them to do some of their own procurement. Because between the three of us, we can't deal with kind of 1,000 suppliers, 60 million of spend. It's too much to deal with.
Yeah.
So by doing that, it allows us to kind of focus on getting the governance, the controls in place, setting up the frameworks, the tools and templates to get the business in a really good place. And that's what I've been building over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I've been really lucky. When I came in, Noel Clancy's the MD of Dalkia, and he was my final interview before I came into the business.
Right.
And he was good and challenging, But we had a really good conversation around what his expectations were, what he wanted out of procurement, what I wanted to build as procurement, and we were pretty much totally aligned in it. So it was that kind of made me come into the business and say, I've got a good boss now.
Yeah.
And as I say, I'm surrounded by a really good senior leadership team. But the business was really accepting. So you'll know in procurement that, often we can be seen as the police. And, don't let them, they'll stop us doing what we want to do. And you always get that little bit of resistance from people.
Yeah.
And Dalkia for me has been a breath of fresh air. So although I've developed really great stakeholder relationships in other businesses that I've worked in, it took time and you had to build those relationships, build that rapport.
Yeah.
Whereas coming into Dalkia, the people were open and receptive and they were just like, hey, you're the expert in procurement. So, if you're saying that's the right thing to do.
Expert away.
And but they have, and they've adopted stuff.
Yeah.
They have an input. They're not afraid. And this is kind of contract supports, even engineers. I go out and when I'm on site, and the leadership team are really good at this, we go out, visit the sites, we talk to everybody who works on the contract. And the engineers are great because they just go, they're useless, and you talk to them, or, we could do with this. You find out what some of the issues are and you can address them. So it's a fantastic, as I say, it's really receptive. People are really good within the organisation.
But that's great. But what's telling about that for me is that the 22 and a half years of experience that you obtained at the partnership, Barclays, GSK, the mine with the snakes in Cornwall, all of that stuff, brought you to a place where you could take on a project like Dalkia and implement different ways of working and the ways of, develop that procurement solution and take it forward, because without that experience, you wouldn't have had that legitimacy to go in there or the confidence, So it just goes to show how making positive decisions within your career can drive you to a really successful place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a little bit of luck with kind of people that you meet along the way. And
the people piece is very important.
That is critical for me. Absolutely. And, I'm really proud of where we are within procurement within Dalkia at the moment. And again, that's because I've been given that freedom and autonomy.
Yeah.
And we used to say, like we had A, B, C, D, E for our values.
Yeah.
And the E bit was the empowerment.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've always felt empowered within Dalkia to actually drive some change, try some different things. If it doesn't quite work, there's no one going, and telling you off. It's supportive and going, well, that didn't work. Let's try something new.
Let's do something different.
And that ethos is, I guess, why we've grown so much.
Quite a collaborative approach.
Yeah, and why we're continuing to be so successful.
Okay.
So, and that culture starts at the top and flows down into the business. So, I'm working with really good people.
Yeah.
And as I say, built that procurement framework. We've got governance in place now.
Yeah.
Spend under contracts. There's a balanced scorecard in there for procurement, which they didn't have before.
Right.
We're tracking benefits now and added value stuff. So, it's much more cohesive. Still got loads to do, a long way to go, and that's the beauty of procurement. You're just constantly evolving it.
Yeah.
But the good thing is I've got that real good support behind me.
Yeah.
That everyone's driving you to do that. They want you to do it. They want you to succeed because ultimately everyone wants the business to be successful.
Yeah, of course.
And we want to have a bit of fun on the way while we're doing it.
Bit of a giggle on the way.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I get. So it's been a really good move for me. I'm pleased I came into Dalkia.
Yeah.
It's allowed me to, I suppose, step up a bit and go, actually, God, there's no one else. I'm responsible for this.
Yeah.
Bit nerve-wracking at the start.
That imposter syndrome,
again,
it's gone though.
Back.
It's gone, even now.
Because you do think, well, am I capable of doing this?
Is that the right decision? Questioning yourself. Yeah.
But
those internal meetings in
Yeah,
your mind
it
between
is.
you and the other one. Yeah.
But that's the beauty of I've got a really supportive manager.
Yeah.
As I say, our MD's really supportive.
Right.
So they've been there to go, absolutely, it's the right thing.
Yeah.
And just it's encouragement.
Yeah.
So they don't often tell me what I need to do.
No.
But, and again, that's why I say you're always being coached and they're great at it. They just, have you thought about this? And you go, actually, no, I haven't. I can't develop something on that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but it's like, you're empowered. You go and do it.
Yeah.
You look after procurement. You are Mr. Procurement in this business. So it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And we'll support you however you need it.
Yeah. Expert away.
It is. But as I say, you can't do it without that really great support.
Yeah.
And I feel, I'm very lucky that I've had that level of support.
Yeah.
And again, working with another great lot of people.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, Steve. Well, that actually brings us to the end.
Is it?
That has actually been an incredibly interesting podcast. I think I only asked you one question, and then we just went off on one.
Talk.
No, it's not just you. It's what you were talking about was really interesting. And I'm sure our listeners, people that are looking to move into the industry, will find your insights incredibly helpful. So I'd like to thank you for joining us on the show today. I found it incredibly interesting. What about my protege to the right? He's enjoyed it as well. He's grinning away.
Excellent.
Which is always good. And yourself, have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't get to talk about half the things that I was going to talk about.
We're going to have to get you on for another free show, Steve.
I reckon, I think we've only covered question one. So it's,
you are literally
one of 15.
Yeah, that's literally true. Okay, well, listen.
I'm more than happy to come back because, it's talking about the stuff I was going to talk about today as well as kind of net zero, where we see procurement going in the future.
Yeah, because we want to talk about that too.
Yeah, we got some real interesting times ahead of us.
I can smell a part 2 coming. That's what I've got to say.
More than happily come back.
Yeah, we only want about 45 minutes. That's all. So
there you are. Okay, all right. I'll make it more concise next time.
No, it's fine. I found that really interesting. And to be fair, listen, who doesn't like a sequel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who doesn't like a sequel? It won't be quite Jaws, but I think it's definitely
we could do
Return of the Jedi.
Fast and the Furious.
We could.
There's like 10 now.
10?
I think, and the 10th one I think is broken into 2, or we could be Mission Impossible,
Mission Impossible.
Again, they've broken their last episode into 2
I think they have, yeah. Well, there we go then.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, lovely. Well, listen, guys, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode. I've really enjoyed it. I'm sure that all of you will have enjoyed it as well. And look out for part 2. There we go.